There's a lot to knock. There's a lot to knock it. There's a lot to knock it. There's a lot I'm reeking of beer. Well, I'm not fussed, no, I've had a good night. The cheap drinks, the good friends, the bright lights. I've been out here living my nightlife.
The whole time you haven't crossed my mind. And my friends said you weren't the right type. And you've made it pretty clear that right. Tomorrow's headspins be alright. Cause I'm starting a new chapter. I've had enough, yeah, been enough, yeah, I've had enough, yeah, been enough, yeah, I've had you, I've had enough, yeah, been enough, yeah, I've had enough, yeah, been enough, yeah.
Welcome back to Hungary. Semi-finals day continues here. Friday, midday slot, women's semi-final action. Field 1 is bringing you coverage of Ireland versus Russia, but meanwhile here on Field 2 we've got a thrilling rematch of a power pool game between Switzerland and Italy. Benjamin Rees alongside Joanna Hamer. And Joe, I don't necessarily think that the experts had the semi-finals falling out this way.
Definitely not. I think the women's division has been so tight up and down the division. Many teams who we expected to be in the finals not here, notably Germany. So this Italian side took out the German women's team last night in a game that was streamed on Pitch 1 on Universe with a comeback. So very exciting upset there. The Swiss women also having a very strong tournament coming into this game, having had a bye yesterday as they took first seed in their power pool and got to skip quarterfinals and go directly into the semis. So yeah, this is a very exciting match, but not necessarily the one that was predicted for this slot.
That Italy-Germany game is astonishing, and I cannot recommend enough that you go back and check that out on demand. Just unbelievable. The Italians were dead and buried, and they came all the way back. They were, I think, 14-11 down at one point and then scored 4 on the bounce. Just an unbelievable comeback against the Germany side that many people, including myself, had picked as the winners of this event. And the Swiss, a little bit of a surprise package as well, finishing top of the power pool. Neither side undefeated this weekend, though, Joe.
No, definitely a few teams giving both of these teams a good contest. So Italian women have won 7 games, but lost 2. They lost to Finland, and then they lost the last matchup that they had with this Swiss team, which was on this pitch. We also streamed it. The Italians won that one. The Swiss won that one 15-11. The Swiss women, having won 6, lost 2. They lost to Finland, and they also lost to Russia. So the Russian team in the women's division is the only undefeated team. They're in that other semi-final, as you mentioned. But they're against Ireland, because Ireland, in another surprise upset, put the Finnish women out of contention yesterday in a quarterfinal that we also streamed. That was also an amazing Universe Point, hotly contested game. So lots of upsets in the women's division. And this rematch here, though we know what happened the last time round, the Swiss winning with a 4-point lead, that doesn't necessarily tell us that much about what might happen today.
No, as we've seen, when you get into bracket play, you can throw out the form book a little bit as the Italians pull to begin the game. I know in the Ulti-World Picks contest, there was no one who correctly picked all 4 semi-finalists in either the men's or the women's division. So that kind of goes to show the parity that's on display, especially in this women's division. Zone look from the Italians to start. Saw the Finns, sorry, the Swiss doing a little bit of practice trying to work around that in their warm-up, but a throw goes away towards the far sideline. A break chance for Italy to begin the game.
We've been talking all week about the conditions on this pitch specifically, as they are quite different from around the tournament, and today is no different from the midday slots we've seen here before. Very hot and very windy.
Yeah, the black rubber crumb on the surface really absorbs and radiates that heat back out. Here's standout for this Italian side, Anna Chesky with the disc. High release backhand down the sideline. You can see that the wind immediately just knifed that throw. Not a surprise to see the zone from the Italians again. I think we'll see a lot of zone from both sides in this game. As an assist, perhaps from Hauser, just about goes to ground. The wind getting very strong, blowing right to left and towards the camera. So this is the difficult direction to go in for the Italians. That throw tipped. Lenderman looking for the quick pickup. Finds Göttinger. Gets Niederhauser going up line. In the hands of Hauser, fakes the offhand, backhand. Now takes the around back to Lenderman. Sideline's getting loud. Not quite in the end zone just yet. Göttinger finds Veronique Meyer. And the Swiss hold on the first point. Wasn't the cleanest possession, but in the end the throw from Göttinger to Meyer gets the job done and they take a 1-0 lead.
Yeah, absolutely. We mentioned the conditions, but as soon as we brought them up, they really seem to have increased. I would say this is the strongest wind that I've seen on this pitch all tournament. We saw both teams warming up with some drills that were intended to prepare them for this weather. Both teams doing quite a few up-the-line cut huck drills to prepare their long throws for the wind. And we saw in those drills some really, really nice throws from both sides, but perhaps preparing for a bit less wind than we're seeing here. Hauser with that first shot into the end zone for the Swiss that didn't come off. She's a great thrower. Definitely unusual for her for a disc to come out that's not collected. So I assume both teams will be coming back out now a little bit more conservative, a little bit more respectful of this wind. Yeah,
and that shows just how strong it is if a thrower. The quality of Hauser is having trouble. The parasols we've got to try and protect our commentary position are pretty sturdy. The volunteers and scorekeepers on this pitch have not been so lucky today. Luke is going to get a little bit wind and sunburnt, I would wager here. So here's Pancotti. Into the middle to Bonfante. Back to Gaia, Pancotti. Again, the Swiss going with zone as well. Just letting the Italians have these swings and really trying to prevent downfield movement. But there are a couple of yards to be gained as they swing the disc back and forth. Pancotti, now for Rolfi, Eurostar. Gets the disc back up the line. Saw her doing a lot of legwork in that quarter-final comeback win. Tries to toe the sideline. Francesca Sorrenti couldn't quite bring it in. Good presence of mind to know that she had to try and get the toe, but looking for the give-go for Rolfi, just rushed it a little bit, showed the underside of the disc to the wind, it popped up, and now the Swiss could break. Swing into the center of the pitch. Nice high release, but couldn't be reeled in by Whittaker. Now the Italians trying to get their first point on the board again. Pancotti finds for Rolfi. This is nice, trying to get this quick disc movement. One of the two Scazzieri sisters. Dumps the disc back. Now here's for Rolfi. Looks at the end zone, shows the backhand, just resetting at the moment. They're being a little bit cautious, and there's a player wide open, and suspiciously so. Looks like there's a pick in the stack, so that disc is going to go back.
The directionality of the wind on this pitch, the Italians are going essentially downwind, although there's also a fairly strong crosswind coming from behind the camera to the far side of the pitch. So the corner that the Italians are in now, a bit of that coffin corner where the disc will be pushed to by the wind.
So there's a foul call here. I think maybe just a little too much physicality from Bonfante on that upline cut, maybe getting some shoulders in perhaps. So the disc will be checked back in and will remain with Rolfi. The still count rises, gets a high release backhand into the end zone. Gobbled up by Laura Kunzelman. Another break opportunity for Switzerland. The women in red. She can have a temporary stoppage as Kunzelman causes a pick.
Swiss doing a really good job of a fast disc movement to get the disc out of that dangerous corner and move it towards our side of the pitch, which is the better side to have the disc on, the easier side to throw from, the strong side of the pitch.
So Cerul tries a deep shot and it's mopped up by Irene Scazzieri. Lead throw down the line, goes out of bounds. Will never be able to be towed back in either, and that's going to surrender some field position for the Italians. Pancotti gets in ready to set the mark on. Hauser demonstrates exactly where the disc went out of bounds. And an instant deep pot. Trying to be reeled in, fantastic take in the end zone as well from Cerula. And it's a break for Switzerland off the instant deep shot.
Really good idea there from Switzerland to put that deep shot immediately as soon as they got the disc. I think we've seen them try some short ball, and it's a little bit hard in this wind. The more catches you have to make, the more opportunities you have for a bobble. When we saw these teams warming up, we didn't see that many shaky discs, but obviously you get into gameplay, the wind picks up, things are a little bit difficult, lots of discs bobbling off hands there, but a very smart move here to just go straight away.
We're seeing again, there was a couple of opportunities that the Swiss had, and in the end, they do find a shot that works going down that far sideline to Cerula. And I see it again. Blade lovelily back in bounds and finds a nice target as well. Cerula is much taller than a lot of the defenders, and she makes the catch for the goal in a Switzerland break. Just having a look at the rosters for both sides. There's the Italians. Obviously, we've already mentioned Ferolfi in the #1 shirts. You see the two Scazzieri sisters wearing 18 and 19 on their back. Talked a little bit about Anna Chesky wearing the 31 jersey.
She was very strong in that game against Germany, caught the final pass for the win. Her teammates also tell us that she's about to go to the US for a few months, moving over there to study at Duke for a bit. She's going to also be playing club with Phoenix, based out of that triangle area in North Carolina. So the Americans very lucky to have a very strong pickup for a few months next season. Yeah,
she would be a boost to any roster in the world. I'm very excited to see how she performs on the top US club stage. Obviously wish her all the best in her studies at Duke as well. Obviously not necessarily known as an ultimate powerhouse, big basketball school. Had a run deep in the NCAA March Madness this year, but getting another big pickup in the ultimate scene. Really hear the wind on the cameras and the mics.
With Italy coming out on offense again, the Swiss have made this third point really difficult for them. Getting that upwind break means that the Italians, if they want to hold and get a score on this board, they're going to have to do it in the upwind direction, which is arguably the more difficult direction, although we have seen the downwind throws definitely be affected by this wind and hard to throw as well.
Yeah, it's not easy to throw in any direction, but you'd obviously rather be going downwind than upwind more often than not. It's going to be a stoppage.
And an audible scream from Ferolfi as she goes down on the pitch.
This is not good. The Italian team has struggled with injuries. Frangipane has a suspected ACL tear. They had a couple of injuries at Windmill as well, unfortunately. And Noemi Nicetto and Giulia Baroni both got injured there. And this is not something that anybody wants to see.
No, Ferolfi visibly in a lot of pain on the pitch. as her teammates come over.
So they're going to get a medic in. So whistles indicate that the game time has stopped. Visibly in discomfort. Welcome back to the 2019 European Ultimate Championships. Women's semi-final action between Switzerland and Italy, with Switzerland 2-0 up. Just had an extended stoppage for an unfortunate non-contact injury for Laura Farolfi. There's a scream and looked like she was holding her ankle, been taken off in an ambulance. Do hope that she's okay, but in the meantime, the Italians will have to try and pick their heads back up, see if they can get that mental focus that can be so difficult to retain after an extended stoppage. But that looks pretty good to me. Deep throw on the money finds Giulia Vandelli. And the Italians getting back into the swing of things now, holding for 2-1.
Absolutely crucial point there for the Italians. As you mentioned, can be quite a difficult headspace to get into. One of your players has just gone off the pitch. Not just one of your players, but one of your top players, a really talismanic member of your team. Italy, very powerful there to put one back on the board, get a point, show that they're not rattled by this loss. The Italian team, we talk a lot about Farolfi being a very strong player, but every single player on this Italian roster that we've seen so far, also a very strong player. Absolutely don't need her to win. We saw a quick turn from the first possession that the Italians had here, but in this win, they're going to get the disc back quite a lot. They were able to get a turn back from the Swiss and convert on the second time on a really beautiful long put.
Yeah, this Italian team has suffered through injuries. Frangipane has a suspected torn ACL, Baroni and Nicetto both picked up injuries at Windmill as well, so they've had rotten injury luck.
We've talked a bit about the sizes of these teams. The Italians obviously with quite a few injuries, taking them down from about 23 players to about 20, but that still leaves them with more players than the Swiss side. The Swiss only bringing 18 players to this tournament. So teams quite evenly matched in terms of player numbers.
You wonder as the tournament gets on, especially as it's been so hot all week, whether having that smaller roster will tire these players out a little bit. It's a very, very loud Italian contingent on the sideline. They'd love to fire up their team. There's a little bobble. It's going to give the Italians the disc. This is good field position. Awaiting the setup downfield. There's no one set up as a reset. It's an extended vertical stack. Pancotti with cutters coming to the same space. This is very clustered. Eventually finds a pass upfield, but there's a contested stall out. I say contested, obviously we haven't let them come to a resolution yet, but Leonie Lindenmann is the player on the fours. Great downfield coverage. There was not a lot going on for Italy. It is contested and sent back and gets the throw off quickly towards the far sideline. Into the center and dropped by the Italian. It's going to give the Swiss the disc back. Hauser winds up, goes for the deep shot. It's going to hang. Is it going to be red? Yes, it is. Really well done from Isabel Göttinger. Dumps the disc back. Laura Niederhauser tries to squeeze it down the far sideline. The throw never skips up off the AstroTurf enough. Leonie Lindenmann couldn't get there before it hit this artificial surface. The Swiss really poaching that lane, trying to get them to swing the disc up, watching for turnovers with the wind. That's really, really well saved by Pancotti. Continue towards this near sideline, finds Susanna. One of these players is going to have to do a big job trying to pick up the slack left by the absence of Laura Farolfi. Pancotti is definitely a player who's capable of stepping up. She has the disc in her hands now, pivots out for the deep shot, doesn't go on this occasion. Little fumble and dropped. These winds just playing havoc. Even when it's not affecting the disc that much, it's just playing in your mind and you're not concentrating as Hauser winds it up once more. Really well defended by Vanessa Bartzazzi.
Beautiful defense there. That shot into the wind by Hauser was a beautiful one, sat as if there was no wind affecting it, but really, really great defensive effort there. An important one for Italy not to go 3-1 down immediately.
Göttinger already had a nice high grab in this point, but this time the defense from Vanessa Barzazzi was absolutely on point. Get a hand in there and squat it away. And they jog the disc to the front of the end zone line with the wind whipping around this artificial turf.
Swiss making the good decision of having a deep defender poaching into that space. Huck and defense is not impossible in this very strong wind.
That was a little overthrow, but well picked up by Sofia Scazzieri. Swinging around the back to Bancotti. There's a reset available. Gone free it up though, takes another option. Italians really trying to inch their way up the pitch. At the moment, as I say that, Bancotti has other ideas, shooting down this sideline, a touch too far for Sofia Scazzieri. The Italians will get good field position on the turnover, but they do surrender the disc to the Swiss. You can see the wind really playing havoc with both sides' offenses here. So Switzerland get the disc off the sideline into the centre. Now continuing, looking for Lenderman down the far sideline. There's another bump downfield. Bancotti in discussion with a Swiss player, looks like number 22, Eliane Lehmann. And there's going to be maybe a substitute. It looks like Scazzieri just gave something to someone on the sideline. Not sure what was going on there. Continuation of the check for Niederhauser. The throw pops up and Göttinger tried to tow it in but couldn't get her hands clasped around the edges of that disc. Difficult to see from that low angle as well exactly how close to the sideline she was.
Looks like there was potentially a foul on the throw, the disc going back to Switzerland.
So Hauser is going to put it deep once more. The throw is going to blade and curve towards the sideline. Can it be read? Expertly done for Switzerland. Hauser gets her first assist of the game. Probably going to see quite a few of those, I'd imagine. The deep put went towards the sideline, but the Swiss knew what the wind was going to do, how it was going to affect that throw, and Isabel Göttinger effective in the deep space once more. 3-1 now, Switzerland lead.
Yeah, we've seen Göttinger and Hauser have that connection all tournament long. Very strong thrower, very strong receiver. And you're right, Benji, that throw, in a different wind, that throw is not the right throw. But this wind, which is coming from behind the camera to the far side of the pitch, that sort of inside-out throw, outside-in throw that faded away from the receiver actually made the most sense because the wind is pushing in the opposite direction and leaves it hanging there. That point wasn't that clean for either side. We had 3 turns each. I think both teams will need to adjust their strategy to this very intense wind when you don't expect to have easy, uncontested holds. You want to start thinking about D-line offense and O-line defense. You know that both lines will need to play both sides of the disc, and you might adjust your game plan entirely.
I remember in the US game when Double Wide had a run to the 2012 Men's College Championship titles, they had an upwind and a downwind line rather than strict O and D line, thinking we want to put all our strongest, most powerful throwers going upwind. Zone from the Swiss after a deep pull. Chesky. It's one of the players who's going to get a lot of touches on this possession. Known as a defensive standout, was runner-up for Ultiworld's defensive player of the year in the women's division in Europe last year. Has the disc in her hands now. Jumped off to Sorrenti. You can hear Swiss coach Derek Gottlieb giving instructions to his charges from the sideline. Throw sits down the far sideline, winning the height matchup and knocking it down is Sarul. Picked up by Siebert, swung into the centre to Kunzelman. It's a low throw, but kept up by Lastufka. And maybe a little miscommunication. Fantastic layout grab. It's going to be a pick, so that might come back, but got to make sure that you maintain the pack, you maintain possession there, so the pick doesn't get retracted. That is absolute perfection on that layout from Annika Lundsman. Upline throw goes to Siebert. Continuation into the end zone is not connected. And a big hand block. An excellent point this is turning out to be from Annika Lundsman. One sensational layout grab, saving possession on offense. Now a big hand block gives the Swiss excellent field position. Trying to get the disc off the sideline, give them more space to attack the full width of the pitch. Little work through the hander space. Someone couldn't catch it. Trying to pop it through, disc sits, but Chesky chases it down, and now a throw goes to the far sideline for Irene Scazzieri. She's the deepest Italian player by quite a way. Has to take a reset backwards, and now they're just gonna be a bit more circumspect. Chesky finds an option coming underneath Kaletsi, puts it deep, bobbled, and caught at the second attempt by Erika Lastufka. She's going to jog it to the front. Swing goes to Siebert, and she takes the timeout here.
I think quite a good decision to have a timeout. Both teams definitely affected by the wind, but I think what we saw quite a few of those turns in that point were not so much the wind affecting the disc as the players getting a little bit frantic in response to the wind. We've seen already in the points in this game that all the players on all the teams have the throws to deal with this wind. Everyone has put some upwind throws that have made it to their destination, but both teams a little bit trying to move the disc faster than they maybe need to, coupled with some very good defensive pressure from the other teams. We have a quite full stand here on the far side of the pitch, full of supporters from both sides, and we hear when the Italians are on defense, the Italian men in the stands chanting, and then when the Swiss are on defense, the Swiss side chanting. Lots of positive atmosphere from the fans. Does a great job at ramping up the defense, but the offense potentially getting a little bit riled up at the same time. The Italians feeling the pressure of being 2 points down and wanting to catch up. The Swiss feeling the excitement of having gotten that early break and wanting to capitalize on it. I think both teams will be happy with their defensive pressure, but both teams wanting to settle their offense a little bit more.
Yeah, obviously the clock's a bit behind where it would be normally. We had an extended stoppage there. Time was halted while we waited for a medic to attend the field for that Ferrofri injury. So we are a bit behind where we would be normally, but even so, it's not been a clean game for either side. The fewest turnovers we've had on a point was 2, one from each side. So it's a little bit of a grind, this game, slightly agricultural. You know, you're going to have to play a little bit of the field position sometimes and trust that you can play good defense and get it back. It's not necessarily a sexy tactic. It's not something that you want to base your whole game around coming into a tournament, but sometimes you've got to play to the conditions a little bit.
Absolutely. One thing we've talked about a little bit at this tournament is because so many games are filmed, the teams have really had a chance to watch each other play, do a bit of scouting, have a look at what they think their opponents might do, alongside the fact that these two teams have played each other before, so have on-the-ground experience. They'll both have adjusted their tactics based on what they expect the other to do.
So speaking about playing a little bit of the field possession game, deep put from Siebert for Cerul is defended by Chesky. Trying to make the Italians work the full length of the field again if they are to punch in this goal. Bonfante has it now. Dumps off, swinging around. Chesky has it on the far sideline. Looking for a little pop, does find Alba Kaletsi. Now Chesky has it again. Going every other at the moment. Switzerland allowing these little short pops, hoping to maybe frustrate the Italians or looking for the wind to pop up one of these little short passes. poaching off there, just clogging that lane, makes the swing go, and the deep put goes up. Just about defended. I think Siebert took a bit of a clatter from her teammate Kunzelman.
Definitely quite a hard hit there. Great defensive pressure by both Swiss players on a bit of a Hail Mary pass from the Italians, potentially getting a bit frustrated with swinging it downfield, not having any looks, and that throw not directly to a receiver.
Trying to maybe put it into space and give someone a chance to make a play, but the Swiss defenders got there first, but collided with each other in doing so. You're going to have the game clock stopped again here.
Injury indicated by the Swiss players. Great to see the Swiss player coming off the field under her own steam, under her own power. Big knock to the back of the head, but walking off.
Yeah, good to see, as you mentioned, able to come off the field under her own power, then just goes and sits down on the sidelines. I wonder if she just hit the ground a bit hard. Looked like there was contact into the side of the head, so maybe potential concussion perhaps. This artificial turf can be a little bit unforgiving.
And that's a danger in a windy game like this, as well as a game with so much on the line. Both teams are putting in their everything for this, and the conditions mean that the discs go unexpected places. They mean that the players on the pitch are often a lot more congested and close together. I don't know if there are any statistics showing that windier games have more injuries in them, but it seems to me that there would be a correlation between the amount of difficult condition on the pitch and the likelihood of players to go down, either hitting other players on the pitch or simply trying to adjust to where the disc is, and an injury without any contact with another player.
So the turnover stands. The Swiss bring the disc back in. There's a violation though, so I'm just going to stop again once more. I don't know if there was movement before the check. Just on the far sideline, the Italian zoning, Swiss trying to run through it, and Kunzelman puts it deep, trying to track it towards the back of the end zone, but it is too far for Phoebe Chambord. Just too much on it. Obviously, with the wind against you, you really have to put a lot of, almost wrench it deep, but with the wind at your back, you can take a little bit off, just try and make sure you get those revolutions, get those touch on the discs, try and let it sit, but that time it motored away out of the back of the end zone. Once more, the Italians have to start from their own end zone line. Ilaria Bonfante finds Chesky coming underneath. Galezzi working it around the back nicely at the moment, the Italians. They've had some really nice passages of play, but a lot of the time they've struggled once they've got slightly further downfield. Trying to get it played over the top. Did a very good job just getting a hand to that, did Giulia Vandelli. And again, you're seeing there the wind playing havoc with the Italian offense. Chambord has it on the far sideline. Looks for an option downfield. There's a swing available. He's able to get that off to Corinne Wiedeker. Chambord with a high release backhand looking across the end zone. Chesky's going to try and come in. Skied over the top. Boyce-Rule having herself a fantastic game. And the shot from Wiedeker put a lot of trust in the receiver, and that trust ball was faith repaid tenfold.
Great grab there, really using her height to get over the defender. The Swiss team has quite a lot of height on it, quite a few players who we've seen in previous games as the deep in a zone, or as the mark in the cup in a zone, having a lot of effectiveness with their height. In this wind, potentially an even greater advantage to having that extra height. Two Italian defenders there on that throw, ready to take it down, but the height really getting the advantage there.
So there's a little bit of international flavour on this side for Switzerland. Switzerland is quite a multicultural, homogeneous country. It integrates a lot of people from a lot of different nations. Obviously, it's got quite a big business sector which attracts people. And Cyril's a native Latvian. There's a couple of Americans on the side, Shambor and Lestufka. Harms is originally from Germany. The coach Gottlieb is American as well in ASC, but got Swedish and German passports as well, and was actually on the Swedish beach mixed side that beat the USA early on at WCBU a couple of years ago in Hoi-An.
Yeah, we've seen that from all the Swiss teams at this tournament as well. They've been talking a lot about how they're quite international teams with players from all over speaking lots of different languages, and they've talked a bit about how they've managed to bring those different groups together to form a cohesive national team.
Think about some of the women's side in Switzerland. Fabulous, the women's side of Flying Angels Bern. Free speed ladies have done very well as well recently. Zuf from Zurich. Mixed sides as well, like Wizards, for example, and Fly High Lausanne. An ever-growing player pool for the Swiss to pick from as that throw down the far sideline goes to the ground for the Italians. The Swiss could open up an even further advantage. Veronique Meyer. As the disc on the sideline. And swings to Avdukic. Continuation to Windler. And again, right the way to this sideline. Bacher. The Italian sideline, as you mentioned earlier, Joe, getting loud, trying to really fire up their compatriots. Very fundamental offense, I'd say, at the moment from Switzerland, looking for dump swings, but a lot of contact downfield. Sorrenti quickly checks that one back in. Nice to see that one resolved quickly after a little bit of a collision with Veronique Meyer. Really feel the heat just radiating off the surface, Joe. It's difficult conditions to play in, not just because of the wind.
A little bit of anger there from the Swiss player about the contact coming from the Italians.
So the Italian zone has forced the Swiss right the way back into their own end zone. Not being able to get anything going downfield here. Backups in close enough just to present those little shots through. They're trying to just crash it in, and they're getting just a couple of yards each time, and then it's flow stopping, and then it's having to go back and around.
Really being pushed back into their own end zone. A dangerous place to be in this coffin corner. Swiss still moving it well, not looking stressed, but conceding yards.
Knowing that the deep shot's not as feasible in this direction, the Swiss offense is so compacted as there's nearly a layout attempt.
The disc is dropped, but it seems like the Swiss player is saying that that was due to the contact from the Italian bidding through.
I think they're just going to stop the game for a little bit here while the ambulance gets across the field. So it looks to me like we might not see any further part in this game.
The ambulance just driving down the sideline, making sure that players are out of the way for taking a second player to the hospital.
Was it Linnea Siebert, I think, who had that big collision, so she's just going to be taken off the field. I will say that there are some things this weekend that have had a couple of problems with organisation, but every time I've seen people go down injured, the medics have been there very quickly and really very well attended to, which is such an important thing to get right at a tournament like this.
Absolutely, perhaps one of the most important things to get right. The safety of the players is definitely the utmost concern.
So the wind really whipping up. This is phenomenal Zone D from the Italians. The Swiss are just going nowhere, stalling, sputtering, desperately trying to get this engine to finally tick over. You can see what's in the crowd's mind here. Almost certainly in the mind of the players as well. Trying to blade it over the top. Could never get her eyes on it, couldn't read it. Backer.
So the Italians with probably their best chance so far of this point to score it. They did start on offense, so this would just be a hold. It would not be the break that they need, but definitely want to get back on the board and close the point difference to just 2 instead of 3.
The win now the strongest it's been all week. Not the ideal conditions you'd want for a semi-final as the Italians punched that one in on a throw from Bonfante to, looks like Pancotti.
Definitely steadying the ship there for the Italians, wanting to put that hold in. The Switzerland still with 2 breaks, so down because the Italian side started on defense, the Swiss with 2 breaks in addition to just trading serve. But much better to have a 4-2 scoreline than a 5-1 scoreline. I wonder if we'll see the teams. There's no timeout called. The Italians are all on the pitch, but the Swiss are indicating that they're ready to start the next point. I'm a bit surprised, perhaps, not to see a timeout call here by the Italians. It does feel like they want to adjust their strategy. That Italian zone was very, very effective against the Swiss, but the Italian offense, particularly going upwind, has struggled against the zone that the Swiss have been throwing at them.
Yeah, both sides have 2 timeouts to use per half. We haven't seen one yet. Games played to 15 or 100 minutes. Half taken at 8, or there's a half-time time cap after 50 minutes. Something that you see a lot more in big tournaments now, just to make sure that you get that change of end zones that's required, especially in the mixed division when we're playing gender ratio rule B. And in these hot temperatures, having that extended half-time break is greatly appreciated. So we'll see what the Swiss O-line can do here. Trying to get the first clean point of the game. Working it nicely on this possession, racing around. Göttinger finds an option in the backfield. Niederhauser goes back to Göttinger. And now back to Niederhauser. Those two with pretty much an extended give-go. Niederhauser has it, looking at the end zone. Shot for goal. Caught by the Swiss, the first clean point of the game. That time the Italian defense not able to stop the women in red. And they take a 5-2 lead.
Beautiful zone offensive point there from Switzerland. We've seen them be very strong against zones on offense all tournament long. And having seen a bit of either zone there, the Italians have a bit of a cup in their zone, so kind of a directional force, more of a mark, trying to put on a force towards that weak sideline, and then a cup going with them. Whereas when we've seen the Swiss zone, it's been more of a wall, preventing the upfield throws but allowing the swings. The advantage of a directional cup is that if you can trap them on that sideline, they have a really hard time swinging it off. But the disadvantage of it is if the Swiss can move the disc really quickly, the cup is more out of position than a wall would be, because they're all 3 or 4 of them are supposed to move with where the disc is. So the Swiss having that really quick handler movement means that the cup takes ages to catch up, and they're allowed, they can move it to that strong side and break. Whereas the Swiss zone that I think we've seen them put on has been quite smart. That wall allows the Italians to take the around reset passes as much as they want, but the ones from the weak side to the strong side are very difficult swing passes. So the wall's not out of position, and the Italians have to take on those harder passes.
Obviously the advantage of really making that cup work as well as getting the disc moving quickly and creating spaces. You're really tiring out that front line of defenders, and that's going to open up your opportunities both in that and in future points. The Italians now will try and get their first clean hold. Sorrenti putting it deep, but there's a defender just going to nonchalantly pick that up, is Laura Kunzelmann. A lot of height this Swiss zone has at the very back, and it makes those deep puts very tricky to complete successfully. utilising their physical stature smartly on defence, the Swiss. Nice way of getting that disc off the sideline. Only has to go back there, and now a little pop into the cup. Kunzelmann, again, really utilising every centimetre of space, every artificial blade of grass. Here's the rule. So yeah, faking downfield, trying to find an option, and it goes off the hands.
Up until that just missed catch, beautiful zone offense by the Swiss, looking very confident swinging that disc around. This disc as well, very good up into that wind, but potentially just bobbled at the last minute.
Obviously, one of the issues you have playing zone offense is the wind, is that those overheads, which you can throw when it's a little bit stiller, are no longer available, as Chesky just got that throw wrong.
That would have been a perfect setup for an upwind throw, the depth that she went to in that lunge, but with this downwind, if you release the disc really lower than knee height, the wind is going to smack it directly into the ground.
And it means the force has quite a lot of an easier job if you've got some release points taken away. It means you're much more likely to get those blocks or just make those throws more difficult to get off.
So we see this Italian cup again, and a low throw hits the ground before it hits the hands.
And quickly punching it in are the Swiss, are the Italians even, excuse me. Diaz finding Pancotti, she's got another goal, her second of the game. See, a lot of the time she sets up in the handler space, but she's very smart, noticing that there's the quick pickup available and just going right into the front of the end zone, finding that little soft spot.
Very smart move there by the Italians. Pressure on that zone. The Swiss not able to move the disc quite as fast as they were in their last offensive possession. And again, the wind, while it's strongly directional, still does really strange things. So that throw was released with a nice low release point, as you might want for a throw going slightly into the wind, but the crosswind killing that one. Not able to get it where they wanted it to be.
These are thoroughly testing conditions for any thrower. And so far, Switzerland have dealt with it a little better with their opponents, and that's why they've got those 2 breaks. Went 2-0 up. The Italians answered. The Swiss got 2 in a row, and again to go 4-1 up, and we've traded since that point. Only the one clean hold so far that went the way of the Swiss O-line on their last outing on the field. And the pull goes up from Sorrenti. Curls into the middle of the pitch, rolls, fielded just after it hits the turf, and stops completely by Niederhauser. Finds Lenderman. Cutter coming underneath. There's not a huge amount of separation for anyone downfield. The Italians just going one-on-one and on a high stall, lashing it deep, tries to answer it. Windler couldn't quite catch up to that one. She looked pretty good in the warm-up in the deep space, but not on this occasion.
That disc just too far. You felt that that stall 9 bailout throw must be coming because there was just nothing in the backfield. It's so windy on this pitch, and it's so interesting because we really didn't see this much wind affecting the game that happened just before this one. The GB men taking down the Russian men quite convincingly in much more still conditions. Yeah,
in the 45 minutes or so between the conclusion of that game and the start of this one, the wind really has picked up. Much more testing conditions out there, and this field certainly seems to get more affected by the elements than others on the complex. The Swiss doing a good job of stopping anything going on downfield. Disc checked back in after a brief stoppage. Again, looking very cramped and congested, but a throw gets up a little bit of space to Capello. She finds Diaz.
Swiss with much more of a match defense look now. There's definitely some switching and tending to certain areas of the pitch, but I think it's a much more matched look, but the Italians up until now didn't really adjust to it.
It's a great put that finds Sofia Scazzieri. She dished it off to her sister Irene, the 2 sisters playing a little home girl in the backfield. Now Diaz, the Italians looking for an upwind break, low throw caught by Scazzieri. And now Diaz Low throw in the end zone, getting underneath it, keeping it alive for the break. Irene Scazzieri. The Italians are coming back in this game. 5-4 now the score.
Absolutely commanding performance there by the Italians. That's exactly what they need, an upwind break. We've been calling those a little bit this week, a bit of a double break, because you only score 1 point, but now you are going on defense with the wind, which means that the offense is going into the wind, and you have a much higher chance of being able to stifle that offense down in that downwind end zone and score a second break in a row. So Italy answering Switzerland's 2 breaks with one of their own, bringing the score back within 1 and setting themselves up in a good position to try and get a second in a row.
That's the first point in this game where the Italians have had this disc and not turned over, and they worked it almost the full length of the field to do so as well. The deep to Scazzieri really opened things up, and then they flowed nicely into the end zone. Just lots of quick movement between the handlers, and the throw into the end zone was a bit low, but doing a very good job, Irene Scazzieri, getting a hand underneath that disc, making sure it didn't hit that 4G surface. And so now the Italians will try to punch in the subsequent downwind and bring this game back on serve. The ball goes up from Italy, fielded by Switzerland. Here's Hauser. Lindemann on the far sideline. Continuation to Windler. Going to take the pop. Lindemann trying to find a way through the teeth of that Italian zone. Cyril, she had done so much harm for the Italians when she's marauding deep for Switzerland. Swiss looking very calm at the moment, not being flustered by the Italian defense, trying to take advantage of defenders out of position. But the throw's going to pop up. Could it be defended? No. Towed in, is it? Perhaps. Yes, it is. Nicely done from Isabel Göttinger. The throw from Cerula was not her finest, but it was good enough to get the job done, and Switzerland reopened up the 2-point lead at 6-4.
A second no-turn offensive point from the Swiss there, going upwind against that really difficult Italian zone, but the Swiss seem to be winning the battle of who can calm their offense down the fastest. The Italians also in that race. I think that last possession that we saw from the Italians was much more the style of offense that they want to be showing on this stage, but the Swiss settling back into complete normal game plan, perhaps just a little bit faster than the Italians. Very important hold from the Swiss, not wanting to get broken on a difficult upwind offense. And that's the position that the Italians now find themselves in, putting their O-line back out there, wanting to score it into this upwind end zone. Definitely not wanting to concede another break here as they're fighting to get one of their own back.
Yeah, the conditions here, very tricky to play in with the heat and the hard surface and the strong wind, and it's a game that's been made even more difficult as we had to have those two extended injury stoppages. Ferolfi for Italy and Siebert from Switzerland, key players for both sides, having to be driven away in an ambulance after injuries, an ankle, it looked like for Ferolfi, and perhaps a possible hand injury, concussion perhaps for Siebert. That pull pins Italy right deep in at the back of the end zone. Callahan territory for the Swiss. Can they shut them down, get this short field turn? Working it out a little bit now. It's going to be a stoppage.
An injury from the Italian player, hobbling off the pitch, perhaps just twisting an ankle there on that catch.
Italian player comes on, just gets any excess moisture of her hands, wiping the grass. Didn't see what happened there, maybe just got the cleat stuck in the turf a little bit perhaps. Gillespie comes on as a replacement. And now here it is Gillespie, trying to swing. Chase down. Big fake goes. Just doesn't, and Bonfante tries to find an option downfield, but there's an uncontested foul. Good Spirit there, quickly gave that one up.
Yeah, that foul almost called by the Swiss defender saying, I definitely hit you. I definitely think it affected. Please take your disc back.
So great spirit there by Linsman. You see with that tie around her neck. Vandelli resets the disc. Really trying to use the field at its widest.
As we hear the whistle go for the halftime cap. So at the end of this point, we'll add 1 to the highest score, and that is the number that we'll play to for half.
So if the Swiss can punch it in here, we'll have half at 8 as we would normally. There's a cutter going up line, catching the disc for the Swiss break. It is Laura Kunzelmann opening up a 3-point advantage. Once more, they were 5-2 up. The Italians got a break back, and now the Swiss have regained it. 7-4. Halftime will be at 8 as normal.
Yeah, 3 breaks now by the Swiss, just 1 in answer by Italy. The Swiss definitely looking commanding in both directions, upwind and downwind.
So you hear the Swiss men's team in the stands making their break chant, tick, tick, boom. The break bomb has exploded on the Italians, who are going to take a timeout here.
I think that's a wise call. Both teams aware that this point, that this half, it will now be at 8, wanting to settle themselves down a little bit. The Italians definitely not wanting to go into half down by 4. That 8-4 score at halftime is a very difficult one to come back from. The Italians will be going with the wind on the defense now, so on offense, so we'll have an opportunity to punch one in for a hold. We've been talking a little bit about what it takes in this tournament to come back from a deficit. We've seen many games where there have been runs in either direction, and many games with upset runs from the team that's been under to come back and take the win. It all starts with a hold, then you have to cap it off with a break, and then you have to go on a roll. So it's not just 1 break in a row that you need to come back if you are more than 1 point down. You need 1 break, and then you need to put on top of that another break. And it's sort of 3 different mindsets. The offensive hold is a calm, confident offense. You get the disc, and all you have to do is keep it. The first break is a bit of a fiery, intense mindset. You have to come out there and think, that disc, even though you have it, it's mine. And then the second break really has to do with belief. You have to say, we've done 1 in a row, and that wasn't a fluke. It wasn't an accident. We did it on purpose. We can do it again. We can harness the exact same effort that we took in that last point and do it 1 more time. So the Italians here looking to demonstrate their mental toughness, cycle through all of those 3 mental attitudes, starting off though with a downwind hold required from this Italian side.
Yeah, as you mentioned before, the DeLorean of the comeback and hit 88 miles per hour. You've actually just got to get the engine started by getting that hold in. But if any team can do it, could well be the Italians, who, as we mentioned, were 14-11 down against Germany and then scored 4 on the bounce to take a famous sudden death victory. And it's going to require a comeback of the same magnitude if they're going to advance into the final.
And here we see a Swiss zone that's slightly different from the zone that we've seen them do so far. This is not a wall, it is a directional cup, trapping those handlers on that weak sideline.
Beautiful way to get out of that trap though, over the top to Pancotti, who has the disc now. Resets into the backfield for Chesky. Now Bonfante fakes the around backhand. Lead throw for Chesky pops up a little bit. Chooses to catch it rather than try and milk it in, and continues into the end zone for the Italian hold. Their first clean O point of the game.
Yeah, and a beautiful one it was. As we mentioned, that directional cup really trying to force the Italians onto that weak sideline, make it really hard for them to get a swing around, breaking the mark and through the cup. But they just immediately do it on the asking, first throw, showing the Swiss perhaps a bit of their zone offense back at them. Confident move all the way to the far side, and then just neat little passes, take it into the end zone.
Just seeing it again there on the replay. Chesky just pivots out around the mark while she's trying to get in position, and it's a simple catch in the end for the Italian hold.
So that's the first component of the comeback if they want to start mounting one here. We've had a hold. This point for the Italians needs to be a break. It's an upwind possession for them. They'll start on defense, but they'll need to stop this Swiss juggernaut of an offensive line taking their easier downwind offense, and they'll need to punch it into that upwind, more difficult end zone themselves.
So the pull from Vandelli catches the wind and dies at about half field. Couldn't see from this angle whether it landed in or out of bounds. Slightly suspect that they probably wouldn't take the brick anyway.
That's interesting. I think a brick is quite a strong position rather than being stuck on the far side, but the Swiss clearly plenty of confidence in their handlers.
So dishing it around the back, Maya finds Gertinger downfield. Just one-on-one defense from the Italians, backing themselves to win the one-on-one matchups, and the throw slips through the hand of the receiver.
Yeah, difficult one to reel in. Had to dive for it as the wind was smacking it down a little bit. Not impossible to catch, but difficult in these circumstances.
Well, one of the other problems that this heat brings that you don't necessarily think about is having those really sweaty palms. It means release points can slip, and especially if you've just sun creamed as well, it can really make it difficult to get a firm grip when you're throwing or receiving as that disc is defended. Pancotti tried to save it but couldn't do so, and the Swiss move quickly, shot to the back of the end zone, very well defended by Barzassi.
Foul indicated by the Swiss there. There's been quite a lot of body contact so far in this game. We've seen a couple of conversations on the sideline between Swiss and Italian players, just checking in with each other that the level of contact is okay. There's also always potential for the Spirit captains to talk at halftime. Due to the fact that we haven't had more specific discussions from teams to team, it seems like both squads are saying they're okay with the level of physicality, but if it changes, they'll speak to each other and they'll let them know.
It's always good to see two teams engaged in discussion, making sure that the spirit is as high as it can possibly be, even in an important matchup like a quarter-final, and that foul's going to be uncontested. So Jessica's checked back in and walked to the front line of the end zone. Maya breaks around for the Swiss hold, and they will take half. 8-5 on that around shot. Well executed, sat up a little bit, but sat up in the right space on the shoulder outside the defender, so there was no real chance of her getting a shot at it, and Switzerland looking good value for an 8-5 halftime lead.
Absolutely, really powerful throw there, breaking the mark, throwing in a direction where the wind could catch the lip of that throw if you don't put it exactly perfectly right, but well reeled in by the Swiss. Italians got that first component of their comeback, but couldn't cinch it to get the second one. They'll obviously have plenty more opportunities in the second half, but time is short. The Italians, known to be a team that has good second halves, their coach says that they like to get the measure of a team in the first half and then try and take over in the second half, but harder to come back when you're down. And the Italian side already had an opportunity to get the measure of this Swiss team in their first game, so not the first half they would have wanted to have. Definitely affected by the loss of Ferolfi, the Swiss side equally affected by the loss of one of their players. This is definitely going to be a battle of mental toughness as we head into the second half.
I can hardly wait, but we're going to have to do so. Extended 7-minute half-times here at the European Ultimate Championships 2019 from Dieu, Hungary. So we're going to take a little extended break and get some water and try desperately to cool off a little bit here. We suggest you do the same at home, and we will rejoin you forthwith for the second half. Welcome back to the second half of this women's semi-final match between Switzerland and Italy here at a very windy EUC 2019 from Dier in Hungary. Our parasol has just blown away. The wind completely just lifted it off the support in the base, and we're now a little bit exposed, but don't worry about us. It's more important here that the teams are able to deal with this wind as the second half begins with the Italians coming out on offense with number 39, Ilaria Bonfante. Bonfante puts it deep over the head of Scazzieri, a turnover on the first pass for the Italians. They turn it over deep as well, trying to force Switzerland to go the full length of the field. I think to the surprise of no one, the Italians going zone after the turn. Switzerland trying to inch their way, really matriculate the disc down the field. Shot over the sideline. Wonder if they're going to do what the Italians did so well, go for that high release over the cup towards this near sideline as you're watching it on the camera. Kunzelman into the centre, well caught. Bastuvka finds Wiedeke. In the backfield now with it is Laura Kunzelman. Kunzelman already a stand-up for the Swiss at only 20 years old. Such a bright future ahead of her, but the present is pretty good as well. Dukic just pops it off to Sarul. Fakes the big, which spaces out the cup. Threads that one through to Chambord. And again, squeezing it through, getting off to the races, trying to get this jailbreak, get as many yards as possible. Throw's gonna sit. Chesky gobbles it away. A shot for Wiedeke. Floated up, it allowed Chesky to come in, get a hand in there, but there's a potential foul call, I think. Wiedeke saying there was a lot of contact on the back. See players engaged in the discussion.
Definitely a lot of contact on that attempted collection. The throw not exactly perfect, didn't allow the Swiss an opportunity to catch it without any contact, and the players will agree to let the turnover stand.
Yeah, good spirit. I always think that's the best thing to do. If you're not sure about something, make the call, have the discussion, and then actually if you decide there was no infraction, you can always just you can always just retract the call. So dumped at the back to Sorrenti. Italians trying to hold for the first point of the second half. Nice downfield gainer there to Vandelli.
The same zone look from the Swiss with the flat wall at the back, almost like a handler sag. An uncontested foul on that far sideline. We'll see Italy keep that disc.
Yeah, you always do tend to get quite a lot of contact in windy games as discs and a higher players crowd underneath. It's a low grab, but kept alive that time by Anna Chesky. Nice around backhand, clap court, maintained possession as she went to the ground, did Francesca Sorrenti. Now the Italians have it very close to the end zone. Irene Scazzieri finds her sister Sofia as a reset. Now the disc going into the middle, there's going to be a pick, and the disc is going to go back. I think they might agree that that didn't affect, and the disc might stay here with Ilaria Bonfante. Trying to put a throw up into space, and Chambord gets a hand in the way, and the Swiss get the turn back. The second turnover of this point for the Italian O-line. And once more, Italian O-line goes to zone to try and make amends, and there was a potential Callahan through almost pretty much directly at Gaia Bancotti, and she couldn't react quite quickly enough to get her hands around it, but they will still get phenomenal field position here. And the little pop into the end zone. Bancotti does get the goal in the end on the little dish pass from Ilaria Bonfante, and 8-6 now the Swiss lead.
Great hold there from Italy. Not clean, 2 turns per team, but possibly expected in this wind. We saw that Italian zone have a bit more effectiveness than possibly it did in that first half. As you said, a very close potential Callahan catch. And we also saw in the first Italian possession some really nice movement down the strong side of the pitch, players going to ground to secure the disc, making sure that they could reel those discs in. The Italians also doing a really good job of using that off the backhand to the flick side, perhaps not quite trusting the flick hold, which is a lot harder to keep a hold of in the wind. We see them using their backhand, the potentially stronger throw in this wind, to get the disc to that side of the pitch, and very effectively as well.
So the Italians will pull the backhand from Galeazzi, lands just shy of midfield and rolls towards the Swiss handler. Lenderman swings into the center. Niederhauser gets this back to Lenderman, working downfield low but kept up off the turf by Isabel Gertinger, having a very good game for the Swiss. Coming underneath, a bit of high release, letting the wind help that one go. Lehmann looks around, just off the hands, slaps them in frustration from Niederhauser. Knows that she should have maintained possession and kept hold of that. Chesky with a low release backhand throws right into a poaching Maya. She saw that Chesky really wound up with that one and got it in there quickly.
Some frustrated looking discussion from the players there. Potentially a bump on the mark, and the stall should go back. The players just discussing what stall count it should have gone to.
So potential, obviously, that with the most marking infractions drop the stall count by 2. The exception to that obviously is the contact call, where the stall instantly resets to 0, and a low throw on the inside channel from Veronique Meyer finds the target, Florence Windler. It feels like the first touch she's had all point, but makes it stick in there, and Switzerland, the 3-point advantage is restored at 9-6.
So many of these end zone throws going a little bit different than expected. So many players needing to get on the floor to scoop them up, but both teams showing a willingness to do that and not just get down on the floor, but get a piece of their body underneath the disc in order to prevent it from hitting the turf and turning over. The Swiss with a downwind hold. Strong performance by them to keep that hold in, but again, that is the easier hold. One of these teams will need to break upwind if they want to break, which is arguably the more difficult break. So now the Swiss going out on offense, wanting to cement their lead with a break upwind, and the Italians needing to hold on to this offensive possession to stay in the game.
So there are a couple of Swiss players in the stand that, without the roof, certainly I know I'd be preferring the shade here. After it cooled down a little bit yesterday, it is hot as hell out here in Hungary. I'm a bit of a pale flower, it has to be said. So I wilt a little bit in the heat, and I'm not even playing.
Yeah, absolutely. The teams all, I've spoken to many of them, and they all say that even though they prepared in various ways and have brought lots of things to help them cope with the heat, it's still been more than most people expected, and has definitely impacted almost every team, their performance on the pitch.
So Bonfante has it for the Italians, and an overthrow there, perhaps a miscommunication. Thought there was something developing, and it never actually materialized. Wind really whipping up now. You can hear it on the field microphones. Stufka, the Swiss, doing a very good job of moving the disc quickly upfield. Chambord, the stall count very rarely getting above 1 or 2. Cyril, not quite in the end zone yet as Kunzelman walks back to the end zone line. The Italians trying to play red zone defense now. almost feel their life in the game depends on it. A 4-point lead would be so difficult to eat. Back up, and the throw sits, but it is reeled in eventually by Annika Lundsmann. And now 10-6 Switzerland lead, shutting out the Italians.
You do feel like that was a bit of a slamming the door closed by the Swiss there on the Italians. That's an upwind break, very hard to get, but the Swiss just moving the disc so well through that zone. Lots of very aggressive passes, thinking about the pass after the pass, moving the disc very quickly upfield. Not impossible for the Italians to come back from this 4-point deficit, but getting harder as the game goes on. And the Swiss definitely looking like the stronger team at the moment.
Yeah, the wind is so strong. All of our parasols have it's just impossible for them to stay up. We're a little bit exposed out here now. I've reapplied some factor 50, but I'll be honest, especially now in the heat of the day, I'm a little bit skeptical as to its true efficacy.
Yeah, we the wonderful volunteers who've been running this tournament. We've just had one helping us up, actually physically holding an umbrella over us. That umbrella has just been decimated by the wind, absolutely turned inside out. It's probably not very safe to continue holding it up, so we'll just reapply the sunscreen and experience the exact same elements that the players have out on pitch.
Well, when it comes to tanning, Liam Grant always told me you've got to burn to turn, but I'm not necessarily sure that the doctors will agree that that's a good idea, as the pin pull pins Italy right at the back of their own end zone. You can hear the Swiss. There are other teams in the stands beginning to wind up, ready for the turnover, hoping for a Callahan. We've seen a couple already on this week in our streamed games.
The wind very strong right now, very difficult to get upwind throws off as one comes out, trying to get it out of that corner, but a difficult one for anyone to field in.
So Switzerland pick up, and the attacking brick mark, trying to work it down the far sideline. Avdukic does find Lundsmann, who scored that last goal. Looks for the reset for Sarul. She tries to go up line. Still count rising. Blading into the back of the end zone. Tried to tow it inbounds on the back line to Melina Bakker, but wasn't able to do so. Too hot to handle, and the Italians get the disc back, and once more the Swiss sideline begins to get going. You can tell that they feel like they've got this game in control now. Looking for a blade. There's going to be a receiver there. Does a very good job getting towards it, but it died a little bit too soon for Claudia Recherbis. Overthrow, just run through, collected by Sorrenti. The Italians trying to get moving now. That's one of the things the Swiss have done well in this direction. Get the disc going quickly, and the big shot goes up off the hands of Recherbis. She had it there despite the pressure from Lundsmann, but just couldn't quite get it to stay in her grasp. And now Switzerland looking for another break. Could open up to 11-6 here, but a drop is just going to give the disc back. Trying to squeeze it down the far sideline. This one just in and out of the hands. Looked like she positioned herself well, and then at the end it just picked up speed and bounced just off the chest, right off that Italia on the jersey. And Switzerland this time not keen to give the Italians a short field possession, but the disc goes out of bounds and wasn't able to come back in.
It's 4 turnovers for each team in this point. A few of them apparently strategic, a bit of huck and dee perhaps, but that's many more turnovers than each of these sides will want. The Italians indicating that that disc went out of bounds much further upfield and never came back in, giving them a much needed pitch advantage, not starting back in their own end zone, but having a much closer attacking point towards the end zone they're trying to score in.
That's always the risk with those sideline shots, is if they go out of bounds early and don't come back in, you do sacrifice some good field position.
We see the Swiss come out in a match defense here, transitioning from their zone now that they're closer to the end zone they're trying to defend.
The Italians with good field position, but trapped right on the sideline. You can see the force actually flip around so she can move and try and work out where cuts are developing from. Throw across the pitch, it's tipped and couldn't quite catch up to it. Number 8, Corinne Wiedeker, just did enough to deviate the flight path away from the Italians. Cerule is wide open, there's no one on the force, and she's going to use the opportunity to take a timeout.
A good call there by the Swiss to settle their offense, but I think the Italians actually looked more tired than the Swiss did there. I think the Swiss might have been able to punch a few throws through the Italian defense and get a little bit more field position before calling this stoppage, but a good opportunity to get on water, to reset, recalibrate. The Italians did start this point on offense, so if the Swiss can take it in this downwind direction, that will be a break.
Something I would have liked to see as well, when you've got the disc in that position and there's no one even close to you as a mark, I want people going deep, because that's the best opportunity you're going to get a wide open throw off, and no one cut, and it meant that they had to wait, held it for a couple of seconds. Obviously good taking the time out when there's no stall on, because it means you don't have to worry about getting the disc off as quickly when it's checked back in. But I don't think they had to take it so early. They could have waited maybe a couple more seconds, as there was no stall, to see if anything developed.
We'll see if the Italians will come back out in the cup that they've been throwing on so much, or if they'll transition to a match defense. In either case, the Italians have been pushing the Swiss towards that far sideline, that weaker sideline, trying to trap them over there. That's very effective on a team going upwind, because when you're trapping onto that far sideline, you want to get low hands, because you'll be stopping the upwind throws, which want to be low, and you're also stopping the into the wind swings, which want to be low. The team that is going downwind, as the Swiss are now, actually have a bit of an advantage, even if they're being forced to that far weak sideline. The mark will have to decide whether to have high hands to stop the downwind throws towards the end zone, or low hands to stop the swing into the wind around break. So teams going into the wind have the advantage over the mark, not just because they have the wind at their back, but also because the mark can't take away the high release into the wind throws and the low release, the high release with the wind throws and the low release into the wind around swing throws.
So you had a little shot there as well of our scorekeeper for this game, Luke Tobiashevich, just making sure that it tried to stay in under what remains of a parasol. And off the timeout, the Swiss turn the disc over. Marching towards the disc is Ilaria Bonfante. The outline cut starts things off. And they try to find an option in Coletzi, but she couldn't get there. Cerule will stride towards the disc, pick it up on the sideline. Shows it deep. Chesky bites on the forehand, the backhand goes down the sideline. Reeled in for Switzerland, another break. Trying to see exactly who it is. On the reception, was really well collected for the goal.
Yeah, really amazing work there by the receiver to catch it. You could see Cerule, as she picked up, calling an order to her team, calling a play, probably wanting someone on that deep look. The throw, a difficult one from that sideline, having to curl back in, but absolutely does. Just manages to step out around her player, throw that disc so that it can just come back into that end zone and be caught for a score. Yeah,
number 8, Corinne Wiedeker has got a couple of goals already this game, adding to her tally there. Slaps hands with the defender. 5 points now, the Swiss lead, 11-6 the current score. The Italians with their backs against the wall, they were able to dig themselves out of it against the Germans, but with Ferolfi down, with a lot more wear and tear in the legs with the weather what it is, and with a slightly larger score difference as well. This would be a monumental effort.
Absolutely, and with the Swiss having 2 breaks in a row there, the momentum is definitely behind the Swiss side. The winner of this game will go into the finals and face the winner of Ireland versus Russia, which is a very exciting game being streamed on the other fan seat stream. At the moment, it's 13-11 to Ireland.
So that is definitely an upset. I must admit I had Ireland in the final, but the way this tournament had gone, I would have, you asked me before that game started, I would have backed Russia. They'll see if they can do what the Italians did yesterday and come back from behind to win. Pancotti finds Scagliari. Now the Italians just being patient on this possession, taking these little short passes where they're available, just moving it through open players. Towards the sideline, just goes to Pancotti. Back into the middle, tight pressure. Sorrenti maintains their focus and composure.
This is much nicer looking offense from the Italians, spreading out perhaps a little bit, not crowding the disc, giving the throwers a lot of options of different things to look at.
Certainly in this direction it's spacing out is a little bit more effective, as with the wind at your back you can really occupy those deeper players in the zone, prevent them from just creeping and inching up and stealing a few more yards, baiting those throws a little bit. Nice layout on the far sideline, saving and keeping possession, Francesca Sorrenti. Breaks around, beautiful throw into the middle of the pitch. Vandelli now, just not quite in the end zone. Scazzieri finds Scagliarini, and the Italians get their first point, and they finally stop the bleeding. They're still 4 down though at 11-7.
Commanding offensive performance there by the Italians. The field was really opened up by their beautiful backhand around breaks there. It's a tough throw, it's into the wind. It can sit up if you show any of the underside of the disc to that wind. Sometimes it can just flip it all the way over, but 3 or 4 throws in that possession. The Italians just doing a very good job of getting the disc to the high side, setting their teammates up to be able to move it through. Tons of defensive pressure by the Swiss, as we see here. A few layouts, but some of those layouts from the Swiss giving the Italians time enough to set up their throw to get some open shots into the end zone.
We talked about the fact the Italians had to come from behind in the quarterfinal against Germany to win 15-14. The Swiss had a bye in the round of 16. They were a bit fresher for their quarterfinal. They dispatched Belgium 15-10 to set up this meeting. The Italians as well had a tight game against Poland, who pushed them hard after coming up from the lower pools. And so you mentioned the winner of this game faces the winner of Ireland versus Finland on finals day tomorrow. Loud Italian contingent on the sideline. The Swiss will try and just block them out.
Ireland versus Russia in that other women's semi-final, which is now 12-13 to Ireland. So the Russians really trying to bring it back to universe point, but actually now 12-14 to Ireland on that other pitch. So the Irish gain point to take it into the final.
That stadium field a little bit more sheltered from the wind than we are here, so it tends to lead to slightly faster pace of game. Mounts it towards the sideline. Göttinger into the centre, continuation. Hauser has it on the doorstep. What's she going to pull out of her bag of tricks? The low release around, backhand right on the spot. Not particularly unconventional, but just very well executed. Finding Leonie Lenderman. 12-7 now Switzerland lead, closing out this game against Italy.
A much faster second half. The points really seeming to go very quickly for both teams here. That Swiss offense was quite similar to the successful Italian offense that we saw. Smooth swings, beautiful around backhand breaks that somehow are released low enough to not get caught up by the wind, but high enough to not get smacked down by the wind. Scoring into that high side of the end zone much more difficult because of the double direction of the wind, but Hauser there just giving a masterclass in low release backhand breaks.
Yeah, low release, but you see, but in order to make sure it's not pushed down to the ground so much, just a tiny bit of edge on it, not completely flat. Right into the path of Lindemann. So 12-7, Switzerland lead now, 3 points away from the end of this game. Normally we'd be time over by this point, but obviously with the stoppages we've had in this game, still got a little bit of time left to go before that cap goes on, as you see the mysterious Ulti-League van in the background of the shot there. I've no idea what's in the back of that van, but I have my inside sources tell me it's a cold box of Radlers. So the Italians now, again, last offensive possession, they looked very assured marching this down the pitch, but struggled a little bit in the red zone where it's a bit more congested. That's a beautiful weighted deep stop, but just over the head of Scazzieri, and Gunzelman slaps that away dismissively.
Yeah, that was an exciting shot. Not the easiest to either throw or catch, trying to get that bit of I.O. on it and not get too much caught by the wind. Really great effort to almost catch it, but the Swiss with the disc again, looking to march it the full distance of the pitch for another break.
An upwind break here would almost certainly kill this game. 5 points is a heavy deficit as it is. 6 with another upwinder would pretty much be curtains, you feel. But the Swiss D-line offense is struggling a little bit to move against the Italian zone.
Violation being signaled on disc. It looks as if the Swiss player is informing the Italian mark about potential infraction, and then required to be a reset of the stall count.
I would imagine that the violation here is probably a double team. That cup in a little bit too close. The Swiss not crashing in, so they can't say that they're marking someone else. Trying to swing it around the back. The throw pops up, using the length there. Good catch by Cerula. Tries to fake it over the top. Just swinging in the end zone again, playing almost entirely within 5 yards, 10 yards vertically. Not a lot of space, and the throw sinks. The Italians can pick it up and just walk it to the front line of the end zone, maybe looking for a little quick pop in. They're going to try and maybe isolate Sorrenti to get an upline cut from the handler space. That is the move. Instead it just goes around, and it's going to be around and in the end zone as well for Vandelli. 12-8, but the Italians are going to have to start getting some breaks back. They haven't been able to break yet in the second half.
Now a gift there by the Swiss back to the Italians. A turnover from the Italian O-line going downwind. Not what you want to see. You want to see that nice, clean, easy hold being put in, but the Italians getting it back, confidently putting it in on that end zone line. But again, that is only a hold. It's not yet a break. The Swiss 3 breaks in the first half, 2 so far in the second. The Italians only with 1 break in the first half. As you said, Benji, not managing to find one yet in this second half. It's going to need to be upwind if it's found, and it's going to need to be soon. We're about 8 minutes off the time cap, so possibly this game not going to make it to 15 points. But either way, the Italians with very little time to put some more points on the board.
If you want an idea of just how hot it is out here, I went to pick up my water bottle, and the water wasn't just lukewarm, it was hot. You could literally have a hot shower with that, so that's just the level of temperatures that they're fighting as well. The elements really conspiring against the players here.
And some news from the opposite pitch. The Irish women have finished off the Russian women, so it will be Ireland waiting in the final for whichever of these 2 teams seals out this game.
The Russians were the only undefeated team in the women's division, but they are undefeated no longer. We'll see if Switzerland can punch their ticket to the finals tomorrow. Here's Hauser, maybe with a continuation, but just going to reset Is she? No. Goes for it at the second time of asking, and once more, Hauser's around breaks are absolute 24-carat gold for Switzerland.
Absolutely, showing us that second look at that throw. In case you didn't learn what you wanted to learn from it the first time, you can take a second masterclass in throwing there from Hauser. That's 2 offensive holds in a row from Switzerland without any turns.
So it seems like now the Swiss have really dealt with the wind, but the Italians are still struggling. Maybe they're feeling it in their legs. Maybe just like the injuries that have piled up. We had Frangipani with a suspected torn ACL. We've already mentioned that Nicetto and Baroni picked up injuries at Windmill, and the loss of their talisman, Laura Ferolfi, early on in this game to a really unfortunate non-contact injury. It's just maybe flattened them a bit, and they've never really found their mojo in this contest. There was a bit early on in the first half where they earned a break back, brought it to within 1, and it looked like potentially we could have a tight contest, but since then the Swiss have been the much better side. But after what I saw yesterday, I still can't count out the Italians.
Absolutely not. No game here is over till it's over. We've seen so many upsets, so many comebacks. But I think what you said is really true. Ferolfi is a talismanic player. She's a great player, but the Italian side has so much depth. So many of these players are very, very strong players. I don't necessarily think it's Ferolfi's legs that are missing from the equation here for Italy. It's more her presence on the pitch, what she brings to this team from a mental and emotional standpoint. They look a little bit unmoored without her.
Yeah, really a leader, and obviously if one of your top players goes out, it means someone who's often maybe just like a continuation cutter then has to be that first cut. Maybe a reset handler has to become your main engine, and sometimes players stepping up into those roles, especially at short notice, can be a struggle. So the Swiss not wanting to hang about on this possession, looking deep for Sarul, but it's macked, and she couldn't get it. Italy trying to get the disc moving quickly with a swing towards this near sideline, chased down by Sorrenti. Into the centre, Pancotti now goes towards the far side, a nice high take that from Bonfante. Scaglierini just takes the reset on that occasion. Quick, no pivot backhand out, Sorrenti goes to the AstroTurf and keeps it alive, goes for an around break, but it goes out of the sideline. Scazzieri couldn't get there.
The Italian handler's doing such a good job of moving the disc between them, looking really solid in these downwind points, but then just every now and then a disc flies where it doesn't need to fly.
So trying to get the disc off the sideline, but the Italian zone doing a relatively good job of pinning it there, and the only swing available loses quite a bit of field position, and the disc turns over once more. Bonfante picks up, finds an option of Sorrenti, and there's a pick downfield which is going to bring a short halt to proceedings.
The Italians have been quite strong when they get the disc on this end zone here. I think they'll probably be expecting to score, and they do so in amazing, fabulous fashion, really getting her team hyped up there with a big layout for the grab, trying to rile them up to come back and aim for a break.
Yeah, getting a little bit of energy going now. And you can hear the crowd chanting, hoping that desperately the Italians can find that fire that they managed to locate deep within them yesterday in that sensational quarter-final. A game quite unlike any other I've seen, I think.
Yeah, definitely. We've said the numbers a few times, but the Italians did score 4 in a row to come back there. So 5 needed here, but again, not impossible.
As long as you have to score that last point, the game's never over until it's put in. I've seen much bigger comebacks than this from the booth, but this would be scarcely believable. The ball lands short of midfield. It's going to roll, turns over. Hauser picks up, swings to Niederhauser. Niederhauser can't hold on to it. This is good field position for the Italian D-line, probably the best they've had for possibly the entire half. Coletzi now looks, trying to find an option. Wants the reset off, does get it to Pancotti. We see quite a few players cross over now to the D-lines. They know that every point really counts, and Coletzi just fumbles and it hits the turf. Hauser picks up. I wonder if she wants the quick big. Yes, she does, putting a rolling backhand into space, looking for the back of the end zone and going out of the back and hitting the board. Just too much on that one, but happy that if they're going to turn, at least they're going to give the Italians horrible field position.
Absolutely. I think there's a bit of both there. I wouldn't say that the Swiss are looking huck and D, because that throw curved really nicely towards the strong side of the pitch. If it had had a little bit less wind catching it, it would have sailed into a nice catchable position, but the Swiss won't be upset with the Italians being trapped back here on their own end zone line.
So Coletzi, who fumbled the disc away on the previous possession, gets to pick back up. So the whistle goes for the time cap, so we'll finish the point and add one. Scazzieri, Sofia Scazzieri, the 19 shirt, tried to scoop that one with a trailing edge, but hit the ground before she could do so. You see she's got a little bit of strapping, taping on that right elbow as well, carrying maybe the couple of war wounds perhaps. Switzerland working on this near sideline. Niederhauser into the end zone. We're going to go game to 15, 14-9, Switzerland lead. Windler with the reception, and game point now for the Swiss, 1 point away from a finals berth.
That's not the way that the Italians wanted that point to go. They had a possession past half field looking into that upwind, difficult break end zone, but just a pass with a bit too much sauce on it comes out of the hands there and gives the Swiss back possession. And if you give them possession too many times, they will score with this downwind. As we see the throw go up here, and possibly intended for Hauser, but no matter, if Swiss gets hands on it, they don't particularly mind who gets that stat as they take it to game point.
So just for one score away from a finals berth that I don't necessarily think many people would have had predicted for them. Switzerland didn't even top their initial pool. Russia beat them in the first pool stages. They had tight games there, overcame Sweden in sudden death. They had another tight game against Poland before pulling away at the end, and then an up and down power pool, beat Belgium, only beat GB on Universe, lost to Finland, beat this Italian side there and beat Belgium in the quarterfinals, and now very, very close to a finals berth that I'm not sure was the experts' projection, but this week I think we've shown that we know nothing, especially in a women's division where there is so much parity. Bonfante looking around at the reset, miscommunication, maybe tired legs. Sorrenti didn't move. Sarul swings to Kunzelman. Kunzelman goes towards the far sideline. Harms finds Chambord, getting it slightly off that sideline, swings Sarul. There's an underneath option coming free. It's Kunzelman working it, grinding it down the field. Harms looking for an option to that open side. Sarul gets the disc under right on the threshold of the finals. Punched in to Kunzelman. Switzerland 15-9 winners, and they will face Ireland in the women's final tomorrow.
What a point to finish there. An upwind score, an upwind break by Switzerland, demonstrating a truly commanding win here. The Irish team definitely looking down, looking low, looking tired. They put their all into that second half. They ran so hard, they worked so hard on defense, but the Swiss just looked unstoppable. Their throws were much less affected by the wind. We saw some amazing puts come out from everyone across the side and just looking a little bit steadier, a little bit more confident. I don't know if this is the final that anyone predicted, Switzerland versus Ireland, but people will be very, very excited to see it.
Certainly it's not how I had my bracket panning out. I had Ireland in the final, but Germany, who the Italians knocked off yesterday, were my other pick. But maybe they got after that the emotional turmoil of having to fight their way back from behind yesterday and losing for Rolfi so early today. The Italians just didn't have enough left in the tank. And Switzerland 15-9 winners. We will see them on finals day in the stadium tomorrow. We're going to wrap up here quickly. Mixed semi-final action coming up now between Germany and Great Britain. For Joanna Hamer, I've been Benjamin Rees. We will see you very soon for mixed semi-final action.
Alti.tv